Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Glad you could join me here today. Last week we went over all the missing nutrients that are needed if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling overwhelmed, low mood, just kind of restless mind. So any of those sensations, I had a show for you last week. I literally broke down all the science for you, kind of taking you step by step through GABA. And GABA is that anti-anxiety neurotransmitter that you can make from food, that you can make from nutritional supplements, that you can make from all of the endogenous intake from your body, basically how it's working with nature as you take in food. So essentially your body knows the mechanisms that it needs to go through. That's endogenous, that means inside of you, when it gets its exogenous nutrients, so that's outside of you. So you take in nutrients and then your body knows the reactions that are supposed to take place. But what happens when you were short on those nutrients? So I went through all the different nutrients last week for specifically anxiety and GABA. And this week, what I want to do is that we're actually going to save serotonin for another day, although I've gone over that many times, but go over dopamine and noradrenaline. Noradrenaline is more often referred to as norepinephrine. So we're going to go through that chart here specifically today. I think this is important because there's a lot of people that lack focus, that lack drive, that lack ambition, that are really all the processes that take place with this neurotransmitter called dopamine. And some people genetically produce less of it, so they need a little bit more of a boost. And some people produce more of it, so they don't need as big a boost. And then they can see why maybe some of these nutrients they don't want to overdo. So again, I always like to give you the unbiased perspective where there is no all-for-one based plan. It's finding your bio-individuality and being able to eat the right foods, get the right nutrients, and today even talk about things like cold plunges and saunas that you'll want to increase or decrease based on your dopamine output. And there's also a way to test it. So if you don't even want to guess, you can actually test your anti-anxiety, you can test your serotonin, you can test your dopamine, you can test all ththese different markers, 5-HTP for serotonin, through a test called the Mind and Mood Neurotransmitter Test. I can link that up today. I will link that up at stephencabral.com/2547. You can run this lab right at home for you or your children. Lots of people do. Very simple urine-based test. All right, so let's dive into today's show. Every single neurotransmitter in the body. Again, GABA was last week, serotonin, that's the happy, feel-good neurotransmitter. Dopamine is essentially the reward center of the brain. So some people wake up right out of bed and saying, let's get after the day. I'm going to accomplish this, this, and this. They've set goals for themselves and they want to achieve them. So that's some people, right? They typically are producing then what? A lot of dopamine naturally, and they're producing that maybe from their diet, maybe from genetics and all sorts of things and the way that they've set up their life and some of the biohacking things as well. Okay, and some people produce less, right? And they might be deficient in a lot of the nutrients that we're talking here today. So the goal, though, is to get tyrosine. So that's the first way we get started, right? So that we increase this reward system. We do this, we get this reward. That's essentially dopamine, right? So if we want the reward, we're going to stay more focused. We'll be more focused, right? And we're going to have more ambition. We're going to have more drive. Typically, people with higher dopamine have higher levels of libido as well. So if you have low libido, you're probably going to want to boost dopamine levels too. Okay, so it all starts with tyrosine. I have podcasts on this. I'm going to link up the missing nutrient. That was the show I did a while back on dopamine. So I basically take you through a quiz. If you have all these things, well, you might be low in dopamine. I've got a podcast talking about tyrosine and foods high in tyrosine to boost dopamine. I'll link that up too. So if you are someone who only likes to do the food-based, great. I've got a show on boosting foods that are high in tyrosine. So you take in this nutrient tyrosine, and then what happens from there? Okay. People think automatically by taking in the food, it converts to L-DOPA which then converts to dopamine. You might have heard of L-Dopa before because people who have Parkinson's are not often producing as much L-Dopa. So if they're not have as much L-Dopa in the brain, then their bodies aren't producing as much dopamine, and there is then issues with motor control, etc. All right, but we're not going to go down the Parkinson's side to that today. We've done shows on Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, many other aging-related disorders as well. Today we're talking about feeling better, right? Having more energy, having more zest for life, more ambition, more drive, more libido, etc. So let's go over it. The human body, I've talked about this before, the whole reason that it gets sick as you get older, right? As you get older, you're supposed to do what? Well, body's supposed to break down. People say it all the time, hey, once I hit 40, once I hit 44, once I hit 45, once I hit 50, once I hit 60, right? It's different age for everybody. Well, why? Well, they basically blew through their reserves faster, right? So I got sick at 17. How do you get sick at 17 years old? How do you end up with autoimmune issues? How do you end up with inflammation? How do you end up with all these issues? Well, you basically burn through your reserve faster, right? That's a big part of it for sure. And you also have an accumulation of toxicity. So those are the two ways the human body gets well. I know it's oversimplified, but it's still true. And then there's just subsets of each one of those. So deficiencies you'll learn today, and toxicities would be things that can block these things in the body too. All right, so here we go. Tyrosine only converts to L-Dopa and dopamine if your body has enough vitamin B6. I know vitamin B6, like you almost never hear about it. You hear about what? Folate, you hear about that all the time, and you hear about B12 for your B vitamins. Almost no one talks about vitamin B6. For the last 6 or 7 years on the podcast, I've been trying to give vitamin B6 its due. It's one of the most, if not the most important B vitamin, because without it, your entire mood and energy system just goes flat. Now, folate is the next one. Folate is extremely important because we know at least 1/3 of the population, probably more like 40%, has some type of methylation-based issue. So there's something called homozygous, means you have 2 copies of a gene or a SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism, genetic-based issue, which means the likelihood that you show X, Y, and Z in your genetics is greater. And then there are some people that are heterozygous, and that accounts for then about 70%, total of the population. So, we have to understand, I should say, that's correct. So when we look at this, we say, when you look at your genetics and you look at your SNPs, you say, okay, if you are homozygous, you're not going to be able to transmute or translate folic acid or folate to folic acid to methylfolate unless you're taking in methylfolate, right? So that's about 70%. Now, some people heterozygous, they get about 70% conversion, 30% not, right? Where the others are basically the opposite, 30, 70. And those are averages. Of course, it's based on the individual. So here's the thing. We know we need folate, right? That's a methyl donor. So when we're looking at transcription of our genes and our DNA and longevity, as cells, because your cells need to replicate because they're not going to live forever, right? Your red blood cells are going to live somewhere around 90 to 120 days, and then they need to make sure that they're replicating, the cells in your body are replicating correctly. Well, when they don't replicate as well and things start to go wrong, what happens is we start to age then at a faster rate. A lot of that has to do with methylation. So if you're only taking in folate, like it says in this chart, for what? We know at least 30 to 40% of the population, it's not going to cut it. It's just not. That's why those people really need to supplement with some level of methylfolate. Now, a lot of people just take this too far. It doesn't mean you need 3 grams of methylfolate a day, but you do need somewhere around 800 micrograms, 400 of the new international units, which they're using for methylfolate, is enough. So again, maybe you need more, but you should really lab test to see if you need wildly higher levels. We go up to 1,200 micrograms in our practice of folate, not just with women that are pregnant, but with those who need more methyl support, without a doubt, right? And you might be one of these people, especially if you have low mood, low energy, low ambition, low drive, low libido, for sure. You might need a little bit more. And I'll share with you exactly what we do at the end. The other missing nutrient to convert tyrosine to L-Dopa is iron. This does not mean you need to go and take an iron supplement. Now, if you are someone who's tested anemic or low iron, yeah, you may need some. If you are if you're a woman who is menstruating, yes, you might need additional iron. But most menopausal women and beyond, and men do not need to supplement extra iron. They can get it from naturally occurring iron in their food, meat, pea, chocolate, etc., right? They're going to get some iron in there naturally. And again, that's why we lab test, right? You find out if you need more or not. Okay, so that converts you. So B6, folate, and iron, those are cofactors, right? So someone could tell you, take this neurotransmitter supplement. It's the best thing in the world. You're going to have limitless base focus. Well, maybe, maybe not. And they're giving you a product with, let's say, 1,000 milligrams of tyrosine. Okay. But that doesn't mean it's going to convert. And if it doesn't convert, you end up feeling terrible, lightheaded, dizzy, all sorts of, you could start getting hives. Your body is not able to use that tyrosine, right? So you can't just take these single nutrient supplements. That is not the way to go. It really is not. Again, it's not like they can't work. You just need to make sure you're getting the cofactors. All right, so now we've converted to L-Dopa. We need to get this to dopamine though, because dopamine is the ultimate neurotransmitter that's going to give you the focus, the drive, the ambition that you want. All right, so what do we need? We need vitamin B6 again. It is used once again during this enzymatic transaction. And the other is magnesium. Magnesium may not make sense because magnesium is a calming mineral. And I get it, I understand, but the calmness of magnesium works with the parasympathetic nervous system. But magnesium is also used in over 300 different enzymatic-based, I'll call them transactions of the body, converting from one thing to another. And magnesium is absolutely crucial for pretty much all neurotransmitter transactions. So B6 and magnesium are going to then get you to dopamine. So this is why, again, a lot of people are low in magnesium and they have low energy. So they're like, I'm not going to take magnesium because I have low energy and I don't want to even be more calm because I need some energy. Well, you actually need magnesium to have energy. So this is really important. Magnesium and B vitamins work hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And it has to be in good relation to your calcium levels as well, right? So that's a different story for another day. But you want to make sure that you get enough calcium and enough magnesium. Very, very important. Okay, so now we know that we have B6, methylfolate, and iron. We're at L-Dopa, then B6 and magnesium gets us to dopamine. And the last part to get that surge of energy, right? The whole reason why people do cold plunges, what do they want? They want more norepinephrine, more noradrenaline. And that basically wakes up the whole body, right? Speeds up the heart rate. It gets that blood pumping. You get that circulation through the body. So, okay, we've got noradrenaline. It's basically like a shot of adrenaline. Well, what do we need, again, from a natural standpoint, to get natural norepinephrine going, which again is they call it a stress hormone, but technically it's a neurotransmitter. Okay, what do you need? Vitamin C and copper. Vitamin C, again, like vitamin C is the vitamin that gets so overlooked because one, it's very inexpensive, it's easy to get, people have been talking about it for decades, but nonetheless, it is one of the number one that you can have for detoxification, for histamine issues, for energy, for so many different things. Like it's magnesium, but as a vitamin, right? That's how ubiquitous it is with all the different transactions of the body. So you need enough vitamin C. Do you need 10 grams a day? No, you don't. Most people don't need tens of grams a day. Now, you might be working with a practitioner and they're having you on that for a specific reason. Okay, for a short period of time, for a specific reason, maybe. Most people, 500 milligrams to 2-3 grams a day of vitamin C, and they're doing really well. Keep in mind, there is no one dosage for every individual. Some people burn through vitamin C faster. Athletes, people that are very stressed, poor detox, people with allergies, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so the interesting one here, though, is copper, because almost no one gets enough copper in. They don't. They're like, oh, but I'm going to take zinc for my immune system, which I don't disagree with. I take zinc as well, but I take zinc with copper because when you study bioregulatory medicine and you study how minerals interact with each other, each one of them has an antagonist. So, for example, if you take a lot of calcium without magnesium, it pushes down magnesium levels. If you take a lot of zinc but no copper, it pushes down copper levels. Well, low levels of copper can mean low levels of energy in the body. Think of copper like copper wire. That's the best way to think about it. You use copper wire throughout your house. if you were to open a wire, you'd see copper in there. A great conductor of electricity, a great conductor of energy. It's used for the thyroid. It's used in the mitochondria. So I'm not saying go out there and take a single solution copper. No, but take it with zinc or take it with a daily activated multi, which it should be in there at about 1 milligram or so, maybe 2. And you're going to be good to go. So why I kind of map this out for you, if you're watching this on video, phenomenal. You can actually see this happening. But the reason why I map this out and why I think that it's important is that most people are being told to take the very first thing, right? Maybe it's the glutamine, or maybe it's the tyrosine, or maybe it's the 5-HTP for serotonin, right? But what they're not told is that none of those things matter if you're not getting the foundational nutrients. The foundational nutrients are all the vitamins and all the minerals, and I would say omegas as well, and amino acids to a lesser degree. You're gonna get those through eating enough protein to be able to make everything in your body work. So I like to simplify it like this. This, I think, really hits home, though, that single nutrients are not the way to go. Even though I named 2 vitamins here, B6 and folate, which is B9, I definitely recommend taking an activated B complex or getting those in a good daily activated multivitamin. Activated means it's the methyl form, which is absorbable by the body. And the daily nutritional support could do that as well. So in our practice, we use daily nutritional support for most people. People who don't want to do a shake or a smoothie, they can do the daily activated multivitamin. You can find those at stevencabral.com/shop. You can find magnesium there, the full spectrum magnesium. You can find the balanced zinc, which includes the copper, a food-based iron. So that's what we use in our practice. As I always say, feel free to also work with your local integrative health practitioner, your local functional medicine doctor, your local naturopathic doctor. Certainly if they specialize in this, they can help you out with that as well. So I want to bring you the information. I want you to be able to be armed with that information so that you understand that, oh, this neurotransmitter product looks great, but does it have all of its other nutrients? Or I'm going to take this tyrosine product, which by the way, I don't think most people need a tyrosine-based product, but let's say you do. We actually use it inside of our daily thyroid support since it works so well for the thyroid as well. Phenomenal product, but that's, again, a story for another day. That as long as you're getting the daily activated multivitamin, the daily nutritional support, you could stack a neurotransmitter product on top of that to get the benefits, and it would work just so much better. And again, this isn't me just saying that. I'm showing you the science today, the actual biochemistry. It's called nutritional biochemistry, something that I love studying that shows you how this actually works in the body. So my job is to demystify this. Hopefully this was helpful. Let me know if there's additional questions you may have. Leave them right below in the comments below. And of course, if this was helpful, always feel free to share the show with anyone you believe it could serve. Take care, everybody. For all the lab tests you can do right at home, all the show notes and scientific research, as well as the big takeaways, head on over to stevencabral.com/25474 for today's show notes. Ever wonder what the best sauna, blue blockers, sleep trackers, wake lights, salt lamps, or other health gadgets are? Or what about the top non-toxic mattresses, sheets, soaps, bath products, toothpaste, and cookware? Or would you like to know the cleanest choices for hemp parts, meal delivery services, supplements, and much more? I personally curated, researched, and now created a resource page of all of my top picks that continues to grow each week. These are the exact products I use in my own life, with my family, in my private practice, and they're the ones I trust. To find out all of my up-to-date recommendations and all the details, simply head on over to stevencabral.com/resources.